and eventually overwhelmed the native population. Salman Rushdie, who used to be a Muslim and who wrote a book which I don't recommend, called The Satanic Verses, which led to a fatwa being placed on him by the Ayatollah Khomeini, a death order was placed upon him, was interviewed recently on C-SPAN, and he made the comment, he said, you know, when a Muslim moves to Detroit, he doesn't want to move to a liberal, progressive republic like the United States. He sees himself as one of the people that is establishing a beachhead in America to enable the expansion of Islam. And that's coming from a Muslim. I had a Muslim friend when I was in high school who said exactly the same thing. Not in the same words, but the same thing. See, it very much is an imperialist religion that, you know, has to expand and has to grow, and everybody in the world must become a Muslim. In Iran, which is Shia Islam, the president of Iran today is what's known as a Twelver. He believes in the return of the 12th Imam of Islam, who disappeared in 860-something when he was age 5, and they are expecting him to come back in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, some of these Twelvers believe that when he returns, the whole world must become Islamic. Some believe the whole world must become Islamic before he returns. And they do believe that they must provoke trouble in the world and a clash between the Islamic world and the infidels, which is basically the West, which is led by the United States. You know, they believe that this clash must come, and you know, that is part of, you know, what is behind their drive to have nuclear weapons and you know, confront the West in every respect. Look at Daniel chapter 11. Daniel chapter 11. For those who were here this morning, we looked at this earlier, but we look at it again in this particular context. Daniel chapter 11 is a prophecy regarding the king of the north and the king of the south. A great deal of this prophecy was fulfilled in the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd centuries BC, when there were two nations. One was north of Judah. It was the Seleucid dynasty. Seleucus was one of Alexander the Great's generals. And the other one, the king of the south, was in Egypt, the Ptolemaic dynasty, Ptolemy being one of the other generals of Alexander. And these two empires often clashed, and when they did, the Jews were caught in the middle. And then suddenly the prophecy ends in 164 BC, and it jumps right down to the time of the end in verse 40. It says, at the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him, like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. Now, why would it jump from the 2nd century BC right up until the time of the end? And the reason is very simple. There has been no Jewish nation in the Middle East in that period of time. The Jewish nation was reestablished in 1948. So again, the Jewish presence in the Middle East became of biblical significance and of prophetic significance. And of course, as soon as the Jewish nation was established, immediately on their day of independence, 5 nations around them tried to destroy them. There were only 500,000 Jews when the nation was established in May of 1948. And all these Arab armies came upon them to try to destroy them. And they failed. And the existence of the Jewish nation put the whole region in turmoil, and it's a turmoil that has not ended even today. It led to all the different leaders in the Middle East being overthrown. The kings were overthrown, replaced by Arab nationalists who promised the people that they would destroy the Jewish state, and they failed. So now the people are turning away from the Arab nationalists to Islamic fundamentalism. They were also disillusioned with the nationalist leaders because they became very corrupt, far more corrupt than the kings were before then. So now Islamic fundamentalism is the force which is spreading throughout the Middle East. And this is what we in the West have gotten caught up in. The United States and Britain have gotten caught up in, because Islamic fundamentalists took control of Afghanistan. They helped and supported Osama bin Laden to attack the United States. So we went into Afghanistan. We overthrew the Taliban, who were very, very primitive. But now the Taliban are pushing coalition forces back. And it looks as if we could face defeat in Afghanistan. And Iraq, the situation in Iraq was somewhat different. Iraq was ruled by a ruthless dictator, but Islamic fundamentalism did not exist in Iraq before the US and British invasion. Now the fundamentalists have gotten in there as well. So you have this arc of fundamentalism now going right across the Middle East. Afghanistan, Iran, which is a fundamentalist country. The Shia dominate Iran, and 60% of Iraq is Shia. And, they are dominant here as well. And then, right up here, the Iranians support Hezbollah in Lebanon against Israel. They support the Palestinians just here. They bankroll Syria. So you've got this arc of fundamentalism going right across these countries. And then additionally, the fundamentalists have taken control of Somalia, in as much as anybody can control Somalia. When there was an election in Algeria, the fundamentalists won. The army took over so they couldn't take over. In Turkey, the government is predominantly fundamentalist. In Egypt, if there was a free election, the fundamentalists would win. This is a movement that is just sweeping across this region, this Islamic fundamentalist movement, and of course influences Muslims over here too. Now here in Daniel 11, we see this prophesied clash between the king of the north and the king of the south at the end time. Out of all of this, we believe, out of all this area here, there will be this resurgent Islam forming the king of the south. Who the leader will be, we don't know. It could be somebody like Osama bin Laden. It could be somebody else. But the clash which is prophesied to happen is going to come with a resurgent beast power, which is prophesied in the book of Revelation and also the book of Daniel, which comes out of Europe. 10 nations that come out of Europe. And here is Europe today, the European Union, which is 25 nations. It is the world's biggest trading power in the world today. Germany alone is the world's biggest exporter. It's got all those manufacturing jobs that we don't have anymore. This is a major economic powerhouse, and even militarily has the potential to be a big power as well. But, this is the clash of civilizations which, we're building up to at this particular end time. So again, the Islamic world and the European world, remember throughout history, the clashes have been between Islam and Europe. Europe having been dominated throughout history by the Catholic Church. And just last month, or was it 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, the Pope gave in his lecture, made a comment about a Byzantine emperor in the 1300s who had made a negative comment about the violence of Islam. And as if to prove the Pope right, the Islamic world got very violent and there were lots of demonstrations and people killed. What was missing from all the commentaries was nobody said that Byzantine emperor was one of the last of the Byzantine emperors. Within 100 years of what he said about Islam, his country was conquered by Islam and remains Islamic to this day. That was Turkey. The capital fell in 1453, and Constantinople was taken over by Muslims and has remained Islamic ever since. So, this clash of civilizations has gone on for 1400 years. And it kind of was subdued for some time during the colonial period because the British, the French, and other colonial powers dominated the area. But now it's come back again, and we're caught up in this too. So the problems in the Middle East are not just Iraq and Afghanistan, not just Osama bin Laden. There is something much bigger happening here. And we can see that it's fulfilling prophecies in the Bible regarding the end time leading up to the second coming of Jesus Christ.